name is Akila James. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to come to you with another video. This time it's going to be a little bit about professional tennis. As you know, I stopped playing professional tennis a while ago. I just want to give you pointers for beginners who are trying to get into it. You might think it's very hard, you might think it's difficult, you might think it's expensive, but just to know that you can do it. You can start at least just to expose yourself to see where you fall. So I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of comments, I get a lot of questions about where to start, how did I begin, why did I decide to go to this place, how much it costs, all of these questions. So I just want to answer a couple of questions here today in this video. I just want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for the returnees. Thank you so much for coming on my journey. And thank you so much for the newbies. Also, thank you so much for coming on my journey. Now that's out the way, let's dive into this video. Number one, how do you plan your annual schedule? So usually in the beginning of the year, you do it from the month you start. Let's say right now we're in February. You would go from February 2023 to February 2024. Now, as you can see on the ITF schedule, you'll obviously start with ITF and then see if you can get into WTAs and then see if you can get into Grand Slams, right? There's two different websites you'll have to go on. You'll go on number one, ITF, you have to pay a fee. Number two, you can go on WTA Player Zone, you have to pay a fee. ITF tournaments are way different. They start from W15. When you see something say W15, that just means women's 15,000. So you can see on the ITF website, it'll go from 15Ks all the way to 100Ks. When you go to the WTA Player Zone, they will go from 200 to 50Ks up. So there's a fee for ITF tournaments and there's a fee for WTA tournaments. Two separate websites that you'll have to fill out for. You need memberships for both when you're starting. I mean, not when you're starting, but you need memberships for both when you decide to, play a lot. I'm gonna get this out the way. WTA Player Zone, you should not sign up for WTA Player Zone if you don't have a WTA ranking. Most of the time you will never get in because you have nothing to start with, nothing to show for, unless again you go with what? A wild card. A wild card meaning a free pass into the tournament by the tournament director. I would say when you first start in your tournaments, you want to start off with the ITF tournament, as low as 15K and as high as 100K. Now that that is out of the way, you want to know how to start your schedule. You want to know how do you make your annual schedule for tennis. You want to plan. You need to have a plan. I'm not telling you not to have a plan. You need a plan. Just know that these plans are tentative and these plans can change. So let's say for instance, right now we're in February. Let's go February 2023 to February 2024. So let's look at February 13th. You want to fly out February 13th. How many tournaments are there? There are about 10 tournaments per week. So let's say February 13th, that date, you have 10 options. They're in all parts of the globe. Shout out to the ITF now. You are able to have regional tournaments. So let's say you're in Malaysia, you can do 2 there. If you're in Turkey, you can do 2 there. That made things a lot simpler and a lot better. When you first started out, you want to put your name in all of the tournaments in February 13th. You only can sign up for 6, I believe. So put your name in all of them, see where you go. Let's say for instance in February 13th, you get into Monastir, Tunisia. You see those tournaments are consecutive. So let's say you do a tour for, 3 weeks, about 3 weeks. When you first start, you need to be out there for 3 to 4 weeks for the first couple of weeks, just for you to get used to playing tournaments back one after the other and getting a rhythm. Know that when you first start off, you don't have any points. If you win the tournament, you automatically get points. If you don't win the tournament, and let's say you win a first round, you need to get 3 points in 3 different tournaments, and that's it. That's how you get your ranking. I would say first start off where you can get it. You put your name in the tournament. You get into Monastir. Most likely you will be able to get into Monastir the whole way. So I would say for the whole month of February, kind of like into March, go to Monastir. Then you don't want to go too far away. So maybe you can go to Egypt. Stay in that region. Don't go out because it will be cheaper, as well as you're just trying to get points right now. Let's say you get into Monastir. You gather some points in Monastir. You go to Egypt. You gather some points there. Let's say you decide to go to Israel, you get some points there. Let's say you decide to go to Morocco, you get some points there. So make sure you stay within the region. If you like clay, I would always recommend South America first because it's a nice place where you can get used to the place very quickly. Sometimes, obviously not certain places that have high altitude, but you can adapt very quickly and you get your points and you get out, right? So when you are looking to do your schedule, you want to do region by region. You might not have a map of all the tournaments that are there for the the whole year, because sometimes ITF, they don't release that yet. So you might have 4 months or 6 months to work with. But what I do is I go back into the previous year and see what tournaments are around the same time I want to go. So let's say right now, as of today, you're not going to find any tournaments, or you're not going to find a whole bunch of tournaments in June or July, but that's okay. Just go into July 2022, see the tournaments there, and most of the time it's not that different. So you can kind of figure out like where you want to be. So just know that use all your resources. That's how I would do for the annual schedule. I'll do it region by region, as well as I would look to see which one I can get into and then go from there. If I can usually get into Asia, I'll probably stick around in Asia because I'm trying to get points, right? You're just trying to get on the map. What is the criteria of me choosing the tournaments? Like I said before, I would choose based off of region because it's not that different with altitude. But let's say, for instance, you get into Colombia. Let's randomly, you get into Colombia in Bogota. Bogota has a lot of altitude, but then you go to Bucaramanga. It's not that bad in altitude. So I would definitely, if you're looking at regions, because I would go region by region, but let's say in that same country, you might have different parts where they have different altitudes. I would go to high altitude and then come down to low altitude. I wouldn't go to low altitude and then go to high altitude and then go back down to low altitude, because that might be too hard for you to adjust. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I'm coming from New York, I'm gonna go to Bogota, and then I'm gonna go to Cali, and then I'm gonna go to Pereira, then I'm gonna go to Bucaramanga, and then maybe finish off again in Bogota or go home. So that way when I go home, or if I rest up for a week or two and I transition, and let's say I go to Hua Hin, Thailand, it's not a big jump. I'm not adjusting so much. So I would definitely go high then to go low. I wouldn't go low, high, low. I wouldn't do that. But that's me. Again, that's me. Another thing I would say, I don't want to incur too much cost, right? So I want to get a bang for my buck. So let's say you have $50,000. You want to be able to maximize your $50,000. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on hotel, on airfare. So I would see which one I get into. Let's say I get into Asia really nicely and I go from Korea to China to Japan. I have to see flight-wise how efficient that is, because sometimes you have to lay over in places that you don't want to. And most of the time you're first starting, you're not taking straight flights. I personally think it's wise for you to take a straight flight to where you're going so that you can, again, adapt very quickly and you don't have to waste time in the layover. But if you don't have the money to do that, that's okay. Make sure where you're not laying over for a long period of time. And if you are laying over for, let's say, 20 hours, probably try to figure out if you can sleep. I prefer to not lay over going and lay over coming back. That's the idea. Going back home, you could do whatever. Going there, you want to be fresh, you want to feel good. Also, when choosing a tournament, you want to make sure that it's not only region, you want to make sure, like I said, altitudes are a factor. You want to make sure that, you know, your safety is a factor, and you want to make sure, I know for me personally, when I was first starting off, let's say if I'm American, sometimes if you see other Americans, you're like, oh, let's message to see if you can room, let's see if you can hang out, not really hang out, but practice together. I look for things like that because that, for me, that's important. Let's say if I'm going to Australia and I see 2 Americans, I'm gonna see if they are, I'm gonna reach out to them to see if they are going to go. And if not, adapt. Is there any specific place you would recommend you start off? I recommend the tournament you get in. So wherever you get in, that's where you start off. It used to be one time Egypt, but the thing about Egypt is from Europe to Egypt, it's not a lot of money. It's about $300 sometimes. You think about that, right? You think about, okay, there's going to be a lot of Europeans there. Okay, there's going to be a lot of Europeans who are high ranked. Okay, can I get in? Can I win a match? And of course, you have to have full faith in yourself, but you have to see what's best for what you, right? You're just starting. You don't want to have to play the #1 seed. Like if you do, yeah, okay, you're up for the challenge. But I'm saying when you just starting, there's nothing to prove. You don't go down in the books for saying, oh yeah, I beat the #1 seed. That's not how it works. The higher you get now, then it becomes more like, okay, yeah. When you're first starting off, it's grind stage. So I would recommend when you're first starting off, hey, go to a place that you could get in, because chances are if you're not in the next tournament, you can always message the tournament director and say, hey, my name is so and so and so, I am starting off my tour, I have played in so and so tournaments in my juniors, and now I'm transitioning to the pro career, and I got into this tournament during this week, and I would love to stay in this hotel and I would love to play this tournament. If there's any way I can get a wild card, please let me know. You stick on that tournament director like a fish in the sea because persistence gets you everything. So that is very important. I would also say when you're going to these places, get used to the place. If you know you're coming from New York to go to Egypt, you want to get there a couple days in advance to get used to the court. Don't be that player that's getting there a day before because you're never prepared. Be prepared. You know you traveled so far, you know you're spending so much money, whether it's your money or the sponsor's money, you want to maximize this money, right? And then do the best you can. Another thing now, so let's say for instance you get into Tunisia, 25K in the beginning. Do I recommend you go? Of course I recommend you go. If you get into the 60K in New York, of course you should go. I would always recommend you go higher because you get more points when you win. I assume you got game. I would always recommend you go tournaments that are higher, but I'm just saying when you're first starting off, you can always go to lower tournaments because you have a better chance of getting in. But if you do get into like higher tournaments like 25K, 50K, 60K, 100K, 80K, go, definitely go because you never know, right? I always say shoot your shot, ask a whole bunch of questions because you don't know. Closed mouth don't get fed. So I always recommend that. So I would definitely say go to the tournament. I hope this was enough information for you to start off. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as if you have other questions on starting your professional career, let me know. Let me know in the comment section. Let's develop a relationship because that's what I'm about. Relationships. Long-lasting relationships.